Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So, spoiler season for Outlaws at Thunder Junction is continuing, is rolling on, is giving us a lot of exciting cards, and one in particular that Wizard, you've got so much potential, and you just keep doing certain things. And me and many other players out there are saying, Wizards, stop. Stop it. No. And many other words too. Let's jump into it. So, first up, and my apologies, I don't know why this image is slightly grainy, it just is, but this is a real spoiler. A 6/5 Giant Scout with Rach, Bonnie Paul Clear Cutter for 6 mana in Simic. Paul Bunyan, but kind of reverse right there. Bonnie Paul Bunyan, kind of, no, yeah. Anyways, when Bonnie Paul Clear Cutter enters the battlefield, create bow instead of blue. Blue, no. What in the world? Babe, why did I say blue? Babe the Blue Ox. Here we go. A legendary Blue Ox creature token with this creature's power types are equal to the number of lands you control. And this is why I'm saying Wizard stop, and many of the players out there are too. When you attack, draw a card. And guess what the next text is? Then you may put a land card from your hand on the battlefield. Or graveyard. Sure, okay, I missed a little part. Wizards. We want more out of Simic Commanders. We do. This card is very flavorful. My goodness, the flavor is oozing out of it. We've got Paul Bunyan finally in Magic, essentially, but now as Bonnie Paul, which is very cool, and Babe the Blue Ox as Bo, a legendary Blue Ox. Very, very cool. Incredibly cool. All right? The problem here is boring. The last part is boring. We've seen that on so many Simic Commanders. Do something, draw, land into play. Do something, draw, land into play. Do something. Stop it. Stop it. It's boring. Simic can be so much more than just lands in card draw. There are so many exciting avenues to go, and it feels like we are hitting a brick wall, and we just keep getting the same thing because you're probably going to be like, well, when it comes to the most popular commanders in Simic, it's these ones that do these things. Stop it. Explore outside of what you're currently doing with Simic. It is obnoxious, okay? Please, please. I believe you can design so many more exciting ones. I mean, what is that one's name that is like the fairy that when you target something and then you get like another target, you know, Ivy? Gleeful, whatever that one is. Ivy, that one? That's exciting. That's new. That's different. Keep doing those things. Stop doing this. I think someone else pointed out in the comments at some point that's like, it's kind of like how Boros was years ago, where like Boros was just like, attack, attack, attack. That's all Boros knows how to do. Attack small creatures. Boring. They finally expanded outside of that, and we get exciting commanders like Osgir in Boros now, which was like kind of one of the very first exciting, like, you know, Boros commanders essentially. And now we're starting to get more and more of those. Now it seems like Simic kind of went the reverse, where it's just like everything after we figured out that players like lands and ramp and commander is now drawing that. And yeah, this is all Simic does. Stop pigeonholing Simic and do more exciting things. Yeah, you got plenty of other options on what Simic can do, okay? Thank you. Moving on. Very cool again that Bonnie Paul is, you know, Paul Bunyan with Babe Blue Ox Bow. Anyways, moving on. Alo Alchemist. A 3/2 plant warlock, because that's a thing, with trample that costs 2 mana in green. When it becomes plotted, target creature gets +3/+2 against trample till end of turn. Plot. So it looks like apparently we are getting, and my apologies, I've already seen this before as well, not this card specifically, but other effects like it, where when you actually plot the card, which I assume is just when you pay that amount to exile from your hand, you actually get that effect, which is nice, and then you also get that creature when you play it, so it's kind of like you're getting a double effect, essentially, which is quite nice at different times, because when you're actually plotting it, it's on that first turn, and then when you can cast it, it has to be on another turn, right? It can't be on this turn. Cast a sorcery on a later turn. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting, like, extra value. Very cool, like a little pump effect. I mean, how many decks is this for? I don't really know, essentially. You know, obviously, like, it depends on, like, what kind of other plot interactions we have, like casting from exile. Obviously, certain colors work better with that, like, Prosper-type decks can't use this, obviously, but when it comes to plot cards, I probably want to consider some of those. But yes, it's a very interesting concept. Next up, we got Bruce Tarl, Roving Rancher. That's right, Bruce Tarl is back. I find it very funny that on this, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, it's just like all these miscellaneous characters are popping up, and it's like a lot of partner commanders that no longer have partner friends. It's just like, nope, I'm on my own now. Yep. A 4/3 human warrior for 4 mana in Boros. Again, look, Boros doing non-just attacky things. There are some attacking involved, but it at least works a little bit differently, okay? Oxygen you control have double strike. Cool. Whenever Bruce Tarl, roving rancher, enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a top card of your library. If it's a land card, create 2/2 white ox creature token. Otherwise, you may cast it until the end of your next turn. So again, look, Wizards, Boros is doing things outside of what they did 5 years ago, and they don't have to do all the exact same thing. Well done with that. Terrible job with Simic. But yes, interesting that we have like an Ox tribal commander. Eddie actually sent me this over and was like, yeah, didn't really expect there to be like that much support for Ox. There aren't. I mean, although you have Holy Cow in a deck, which is amazing. Holy Cow is a card if you haven't seen that. It's great. It's a cow angel. It's an Ox angel, but yeah, Anyways, but yeah, being able to give your Ox in double strike, that's great. Again, when you are getting those lands, that is 2/2 Oxes, which obviously hit for 4, so some Anthem effects can go great in this kind of a deck. I mean, obviously, like Heliod's, not Heliod's Intervention, is that what it is? Heliod's, whatever it is. Dictative Heliod, there we go. +2/+2 out of nowhere. I mean, turning your Ox into 4/4s that can hit for 8. Gross. But yeah, otherwise you may cast it until your next turn. That's nice to be able to give you some impulse draw with that as well. Again, keep in mind, obviously this does happen on attack trigger, which is nice to use and abuse with like extra combat spells if you have those. But obviously you are in red, which has some effects, but more so white, which has an absurd amount of blink effects. Yeah, you can really take advantage of that ETB again and again and again. So there's a lot of spicy things you can do with this one. Again, I like that Boros is going in different directions. Wizards, do the same with Simic. Thank you. Next up, Caught in the Crossfire. Crossfire! Anyone remember that really bad commercial, bad game thing? Anyways, no. Okay. Instant for red plus. So we are getting a spree card, of course. Choose 1 or more additional cost. +1. Caught in the Crossfire. Deals 2 damage to each outlaw creature. Assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks are outlaws. +1. Caught in the Crossfire deals 2 damage to each non-outlaw creature. So this is kind of interesting. It's a flexible board wipe in a way that, like, if you have, and I guess I say board wipe, but it's like, I guess it really can be kind of. No, because it's only really 2 damage no matter what you do. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you have an outlaw deck, you can, like, take out your opponent's small creatures, and if not, take out small creatures with this for 3 mana. So yeah, not all that great, I don't think. Next up, Fleeting Reflection. Instant for 1 and a blue. Target creature control gains Hexproof until end of turn. Untap that creature. Until end of turn comes copy up to 1 other target creature. That's actually pretty interesting. So being able to protect a creature can be great by, giving it Hexproof and untapping it. Make sure you can actually utilize its ability again. Like, my Garth deck might be able to utilize this to protect Garth. Utilize it again. Or just make it a copy of something else, which can be huge, again, especially for a deck like that, where there's some other creatures that have tap abilities that you might want to utilize too. Yeah, just temporarily becoming a copy of another creature can be a very powerful thing too, especially when you give it like Hexproof. You're like, oh, okay, cool, sure, I'll, I guess it's one other target creature, not necessarily one that you control. So it's like, oh, that player's got a Blightsteel Colossus. Cool. I'll make my creature into a Blightsteel Colossus that has Hexproof. So you can do some pretty crazy things with this. Again, instant speed, untapping effects typically just cost 1, but you're adding a little bit more on top of that. The protection with that's Hexproof, which is nice. And the flexibility comes copy of up to 1 of the target creature. Does not have to become another creature. Again, up to 1 means you can still pick 0. So just keep it the same. Next up, Kellen joins up yet another legendary enchantment. Hopefully this one isn't very valuable so that Eddie can't just keep using these legendary cards in the Eska deck. Although that deck is getting quite chock full of amazing legendary cards, so this one might not be up to snuff. A legendary enchantment for 3 mana in Bant. Enters the battlefield, you may exile a non-land card with mana value 3 or less in your hand. If you do, it becomes plotted. So again, cast it for free on a later turn at sorcery speed. Whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a counter on each creature you control. Okay. So, again, I think I keep saying this one, but, like, Joda is kind of like maybe it is the gold standard these days of, like, a legendary tribal commander. It's a very one that's off the top of the mind. The new Joda, I should say. But, yeah, being able to be like, oh, another legendary coming to play. Cool. Everyone gets a counter. Oh, another one came to play. Everyone gets a counter. On top of when you play this, you actually just get a potentially free spell out of your hand when you need it later. So, yeah, plotting something can be quite powerful. Yeah, it's a very interesting one. I don't think it's going to make the cut for Eska, but we shall see for Eddie's Eska deck. But yeah, a very powerful one indeed. One that can work really interesting with like a Sisay again, because Sisay can like tutor these out. So tutoring this out to get something for free out of your hand, you're kind of just like getting that same value that you'd be getting from this one, but also on top of that, obviously getting those counters on things, which I guess lower in the game, earlier in the game, you can help Sisay out with this to grow its power as well. So yeah, ++1 counters if you got enough legendaries in the deck, or yeah, just a legendary tribal is definitely a place for this one. Next up. Oh, and I should mention actually, hey, if you've got those free spells, not free, the ones you have to suspend extra cast that don't have mana cost, you can do that, right? You can just cast that. So yeah, have fun plotting your Noble Betrayal. That's the card. There we go. Or Hypergenesis. Next up, Lassoed by the Law. Enchantment for 3 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent in opponent controls until Lassoed by the Law leaves the battlefield. Wizards, I know, and many players out there probably don't care about this, but with these kind of like Fiend Hunter type effects, please just let us exile our own permanents. Please. Come on. I know there's some broken loops that you can do with that, and that's why it's fun, but you stopped allowing people to exile their own things with this because you can just, once you get 3 of them, then they can just exile themselves essentially in a loop, and then you can win with a variety of ways. Like, I guess Constellation could like kind of help you win with that if you got those kind of things in play, but okay, that's aside. Hey, okay, so 4 mana to temporarily get rid of something, or maybe even permanently if this never gets dealt with. On top of that, when it enters the battlefield, you get one of those mercenaries that can tap for +1/+0, active on sorcery speed. Yeah, I mean, it's basically like a more expensive, another one of those like Oblivion rings, essentially. But again, only for your opponent's permanents, which is typically what you want. Yes, unless you're doing a really janky, weird Fiend Hunter tribal deck like, I like doing. So, yeah, it's like one of those, but slightly more expensive. Is it worth the extra 1 mana to get a 1/1 mercenary? Probably not for most decks out there. Next up, Lively Durge. Sorcery for 1 and a black. Plus, we got a spree card again, of course. Choose 1 or more additional cost. An extra 1, search life for a card, put in your graveyard, then shuffle. So Entomb for 3 mana? Wizards, come on. 2 extra, return up to 2 target creature cards. Total mana value 4 less, you go to the battlefield. I mean, Wizards, couldn't you have just done like a single black mana for Lively Durge, and then still the +1 for that go tutor out something, put in your grave, then shuffle, and then like 3 mana for the other one? Couldn't you just done it that way? Come on. I mean, 5 mana for tutor a card, get in your graveyard, and then get that creature back if its mana value is 4 or less, or again, like that plus something else, essentially, if it's small enough. Yeah, I mean, like, I guess it could help you with comboing, sure, but like, I still think that the whole card, the top cost, right, should be just a single black mana, and then add another one to the reanimation aspect of it, but don't add that to the tutor aspect. I think, like, entombing for 2 mana at sorcery speed is fair. I think entombing for 3 mana at sorcery speed, meh. It's just me. Meh. Next up. Oh, and thank you, MTG Goldfish, for any translated versions on these cards. Longhorn Sharpshooter, a 3/3 Minotaur Rogue, because that's the thing, with reach for 3 mana in red, becomes the target. Becomes plotted, deals damage to any target. There we go. So this one actually costs more. Is this the first one we're seeing that costs more to plot, actually? No, I talked about another one last episode. Anyways, sometimes plotting costs more, actually, because it does give you that flexibility of utilizing it on another turn, which is nice, but also with these, yeah, when you're plotting it, you get an extra benefit. You get, like, a shock benefit of, targeting something 2 damage. That's nice. Again, like, how much play is this really going to see? It really depends if there's, like, a plot deck out there. Maybe, like, a commander that deals with plot or casts things from exile, that kind of things as well. So, yeah. It's definitely one that's, like, it's on the weaker end of, like, what it does, but, like, it's interesting, again, to see these, like, when something becomes plotted, you get this effect. So it's kind of like, again, in a weird way, it's also kind of like adventure, in a way, because it's kind of like you get the adventure first, and then you get, like, the foretell on the other end of it, but for free. Yeah, very interesting. Next up, Outcaster Greenblade, a 1/2 human mercenary for 3 mana in green. Enters the battlefield, search life for a basic land or desert card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting us to get, like, a better, like, oh gosh, what's that elf? Fineheart Elf? Or what? No, not Fineheart Elf. It's escaping me right now. It's an elf that's just a 1/1. Enters the battlefield, go get a basic land to play tapped. I didn't expect us to get that, so this is more so just like go get a land, hit a land drop. Could be a desert too. +1 for each desert you control. So yeah, desert decks can definitely consider this one. Can definitely be a massive threat for those decks. Like you just get in a play and you're like, oh, by the way, I've got 10 deserts in play because we're getting more desert support too. Cool. Be able to utilize this to say, yeah, I'm going to hit you for a lot, and also just get you another card too. Next up, Stubborn Burl Fiend, a 2/2 Badger Beast Mount for 2 mana because that's the thing. Yeah, I wouldn't want to ride the Badger Beast Mount. That looks horrifying. Becomes saddled for the first time each turn, mill 2 cards. Then it gets +X/+0 until after X number of creature cards in your graveyard, saddle 2. interesting that they restrict it in that way. I think this is the first time we're seeing that restriction of, for the first time each turn, because, yeah, with Saddle, I should say. Because that is interesting that you get, like, that trigger. On the other ones, it's mostly like, hey, when you, like, attack or when it hits someone. This one's the first one I think that we're seeing that's, like, just when it gets saddled is when you get that trigger, which I guess that makes sense then as to why you'd, like, limit that, because if not that this one would be overly powerful, but you could just, like, saddle with your entire team, mill a lot of times, and then give it a lot of power, which would actually be a really big amount of power. If you have, like, a mill deck with this, yeah, there's definitely some opportunity to have a lot of creature cards in your graveyard, and when you do that, you can just do it, get some more creatures in there, do it, get some more creatures in there, and then give this thing, like, plus 20, or whatnot, and smack someone for a lot. I don't know if that's all that problematic. Yeah, it's an interesting card, one that could potentially see play, like, in self-mill strategies, potentially, because it's going to be a decent threat at a certain point, and also can help you mill with another creature saddling it. That being said, yeah, either mill or, again, I'm sure mountain decks are going to be a thing at a certain point, like mount plus vehicles. Interesting. Next up, Thunder Lasso. That's a cool name. Artifact equipment for 3 mana in white. Equip 2, enters the battlefield attached to our creature you control. So an automatic attached equipment. Those are interesting. +1/+1. Equip creature attacks. Tap target creature playing player controls. I mean, not all that interesting. Anyways, next up, Vis Bandit. One that I think is very interesting. A 2/2 shapeshifter rogue for 4 mana. You may have it in the battlefield as a copy of a creature control, except as a shapeshifter rogue and its other types, and plot for 2 and a blue. So this one is, what's it? Is it Mirror Image? I keep always saying, like, Mirror Entity, Mirror Image. Mirror Entity, I think, is a shapeshifter changeling thing. Mirror Image, I believe, is the 3 mana clone, I believe. Let me know in the console if I'm wrong on that. But basically, this is that, because, again, it only can copy your creatures. So unlike regular clone, which is what all clones are based off of, right, at 4 mana, 3 and a blue, exact same cost, that clone can copy any creature on the battlefield, including your opponent's creatures. This one can only copy your own. It also is a shapeshifter rogue, which I guess could be, you know, meaningful, I guess, if you've got rogue tribal, shapeshifter tribal, or, again, just like outlaw tribal. So there you go. But yes, this one can also be plotted, which I find very interesting, because then it's like the exact same cost, again, for that 2 and a blue of that Mirror Image, which I think is a very effective clone, because there are certain decks, like decks that I built before too, that actually focus just on cloning your own things and being very impactful with that. So with that, yeah, clone your own thing for cheaper than a regular clone, again, at 4 mana. This is at 3. You can't be on that same turn, though. So, again, being able to plot, I think, is a very interesting, like, flexible thing where, like, if you really need to clone that on your turn, for whatever reason, do it for 4 mana. If not, yeah, save that extra mana and also plot for free, or, you know, cast this for free on a later turn, which I really like that. Again, and I do like that we are getting, like, these different variations of clones. I think this is a pretty good one. Next up, Wrangler of the Damned. A 1/4 human soldier with flash for 5 mana and Azorius. Beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast any spell from your hand this turn, create a 2/2 white spirit creature with flying. Interesting. So this one can actually make you a decent amount of, you know, creatures throughout the game. Again, it's the beginning of your own end step, no one else's end step, just yours. So 1 trip around the table, you're getting this 1 time potentially. Didn't cast any spell from your hand this turn is very specific. You can cast it from the command zone, obviously. You can cast from the graveyard. You can cast from exile, of course, with, like, plot and other things as well. Impulse draw. But yeah, if you're casting from anywhere but your hand, you're in luck. If you're casting from your hand, don't consider this card. So, like, was it Vega the Watcher? Is that the commander? I think that's the one, right? The one that basically you're casting outside your hand, you're drawing cards. That kind of a commander that's specifically wanting you to cast anywhere but your hand. Great. Do this. Future Sight, I guess, too. Like, you know, off the top of your library works as well. So, yeah, make sure you're considering this kind of a card. It can give you a lot of creature value throughout the game. That being said, I mean, if you don't do that, then, yeah, it may lead to some things where, like, I really want that creature token, but, like, I really need to cast it on my turn. You're going to go through some tough decisions if not. And finally, Rku of Many Pass. Rku is back and very, very spicy. A 3/3 human wizard for 3 mana and Teamer. And I think this is the first time, correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on this, but I think I did a Scrapfall search that was basically like, modal. Have we seen the word modal on any card? No. So we're finally, like, actually saying modal, which I think that's really cool that we're actually getting a modal commander. Whenever you cast a modal spell, choose up to X, for X the number of times you chose a mode for that spell. So again, modal spells are like choose 1 or more, or choose any number, whatever. If you have an option, there you go, it's a modal spell. Exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play it. Put a +1 counter on Rku of Many Pass against trampled on a turn. Create a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying. Notably, I believe I saw in some comments that I assume this as well, but, like, any of those like modal, like the sieges essentially, like enchantments that like say like choose one when enters the battlefield. I don't think those count as modal spells because it's not like on the stack. It's not modal. I don't believe that, right? It just like has that text on it, but like you're not choosing things on the stack. So there you go. This one though, yeah, it's just like, hey, do you like those cards that give you a bunch of options? Like essentially any of the like charms could be, I mean, I'm going to go through some cards that help with this one though, because I think it's a very interesting commander. So we'll talk about some budget buys and price your picks, but like the charms themselves are like, hey, you pick one out of what, 3 options? Those are good. But with this commander, the more of those modes that you pick, again, choose up to X for X the number of times you chose a mode for that spell. The more modes you're picking for that spell, the more valuable this commander becomes. Because, again, that first one is, well, Impulse Draw, right into the end of your next turn, which is nice. And, again, it says play, so that means you can do lands, too, which is very nice. Counter on it, against trample until end of turn. Cool. You can actually make this into a decent threat throughout the game and hit pretty hard with it. Starts off as a 3/3, but can definitely hit for more and get damage through that trample. Or, yes, get a bird, which is interesting because Rku's just like, by the way, bird friends, come here. Come, hit bird. Bird. Come here, bird. Bird. Thank you. So it's just, I mean, compared to what Rku used to do, which is like copy things, this is an interesting, again, playing with a different kind of like twist on that. That was copying spells, copying creatures. This is, hey, take cards that give you options, and I'll give you even more great options that aren't really options. I guess technically they are, because you could have like 2. But, I mean, obviously, the more and more times you can be like, I picked 3 things, the better this is going to be, I mean, if those spells are actually effective. Don't just take spells that give you a lot of options that don't really help you at all. But yeah, very interesting. New teamer commander. Again, I like the direction of this, and I do like that they're actually naming modal, because it's like, that opens up a bunch of possibilities for the types of commanders that you can do, because if they didn't name like a modal spell, I don't know how. It would take so much text, I think, to actually describe that. Like, when you cast a spell that gives you choices, and you pick more than one choice, or what, I don't even know. Yeah, so basically, this is a card that I think takes, again, a different direction, a kind of commander that people have been waiting for, I think, for a while, and finally we get one. So I think there's a lot of interesting things you can do this one. Let's talk about some budget buys. Let's talk about some price your picks that can work with this one. So when it comes to budget buys, again, those are cards that are less than $1. A quick reminder, too, that every single one of these cards I'm talking about are going to be in that link in the description below, so make sure you check those out if you are interested in Rku. First up, I mean, it's pretty obvious that if you have, like, the text on a card that's like, hey, choose one or more, it's probably going to be good, because especially if, again, it says choose one or more, you can pick any number of the options. And typically with this command, you're going to be like, I want all the options, because if I get all those options, then I get all my commander's options again if it's 3 or more of those. So again, sorcery for X, red, and a green, claim Defiance. Choose one or more. X damage target creature with flying, X damage target creature without flying, X damage target player or planeswalker. Kind of in a weird way, this is one where you might even just put 0 into that. Like, let's say you don't have anything you really want to take out, or like you just have like 2 mana left at the end of the turn, you're like, I'd really like to like impulse draw, and I'd really like to get a counter on my commander and trample, and I'd really like to get a bird. Just pay 2 mana for this. Again, no X, just 2 mana, red and green, and say 0 damage to those things. And you still have to have targets for, I believe, because it's still like 0 damage to that, 0 damage to that, 0 damage to that. Which obviously, if it's a player, you can still choose that. But yeah, you need a creature with flying, creature without flying in play. But if you have those, congratulations. You can deal 0 damage to them, and then you can get your commander's triggers. I guess at the very least, you'll have one without flying with your commander. So essentially, yeah, this could also just be a great removal spell for you, though. You know, get rid of 2 things, smack someone in the face, or get rid of 3 things potentially if there's a planeswalker in play too. So that plus all the value off your commander. This kind of reminds me a little bit of Aragorn, the more popular one. That's like, hey, all those multicolored spells, cast them all, get all these fantastic effects. It's kind of like the same thing in a way, but different. Next up, Inscription of Abundance. This is like an option, but also you get all the things if you do something which is called kicking. Have you heard of kicking? Kicker for 2 and a green. Choose 1. If the spell is kick, choose any number instead. So again, any number means you get everything. Put 2 counters on target creature. Target player gains X life for X the greatest power creatures they control. Target creature control fights target creature you don't control. So if you go for all those options, great. 5 mana. That's a decent amount of mana to invest in this, but instead of just getting 3 things out of this, which is still already pretty good, you're getting 5 things. Sorry, 5. 6 things. There we go. We got the math right. You're getting 6 things. And this also works really well with the commander, again, because you can make it into an even bigger threat, giving it more counters. You can gain a good amount of life from it, and you can have your commander take something out too. So, or other things depending on what you have with the deck. But yeah, very interesting. Next up, Collective Defiance goes about in a different way. So Escalate is another kind of a card that can work with that. That's another kind of card, another kind of mechanic. Pay one to pay this. Sorry, one. Pay this cost for each mode chosen beyond the first. Choose one or more. Target player discards all the cards in their hand, then draws that many cards. 4 damage target creature, 3 damage target opponent. Again, if you're paying basically 5 mana in total for this, you get all of those options. If you get all of those options, congratulations, you get all the options on your commander as well. Next up, not saying that you need to have all those options. I mean, if I had to like rank those effects and what I would build around, it would be the impulse draw and the birds that you are making, the tokens that you're making. Go wide instead of going tall. Now, some people like to go tall. That's completely fine. But yeah, I would definitely consider cards that give you 2 options as well, like Prismari Command. These are quite good as well, the commands. Choose 2. 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards, discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure token, destroy target artifact. All great options. Again, very flexible. Pick your best 2. Pick your best 2 on your commander. Again, in my opinion, I'd build around mostly the birds and mostly the impulse draw as well. And sure, again, if you really want to pump your commander, go for it with that as well. Next up, Quandrix Command. Again, you've got a lot of great command options as well. Strixhaven gave us a good amount of options of those. Return target creature, planeswalker to its owner's hand. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell. 2 counters on a creature. Target player shovels up 3 cards from the graveyard library. All great options. Again, with these, again, giving yourself like flexibility with a deck like this can be quite nice by being able to say, yeah, I have all these cards that give me all these choices. I can be prepared for nearly any kind of a situation and go a lot of different directions to win this game. Next up, Fiery Confluence. These are, again, the Confluences are fantastic with this kind of a commander because these are already pretty powerful cards, and they do give the option to just take all 3. Choose 3, choose the same mode more than once. You may, I should say. 1 damage each creature, 2 damage each opponent, destroy target artifact. If you pick all 3 of those, again, you get all 3 of those options for your commander. That is 6 things in total for 4 mana. That is a ton of value. Speaking of value, Mystic Confluence, choose 3, choose same mode more than once. Counter a spell since score pays 3. Return target creature to its owner's hand, draw a card. Again, this one's more situational where, like, if you want all the options, you kind of have to wait till someone casts a spell that you might want to counter. So there you go. But yeah, still in that, light, this is still a very, very, very good effect. Again, instant speed 2 can just do some surprising things with this commander as well. Series Artistry. Again, even at a higher mana value, you can get a lot of value out of something that even just gives you, it's like one or both, but you're pretty much always going to pick both with this. So make sure you're kind of choosing ones that aren't like, well, sometimes it's not a good idea to pick both. Unless it's like, a good situational card that will help you out. But make sure you're picking ones that give you the most options to take most of the time, I would say. Create tokens, copy target artifact. Yeah, I mean, there's probably going to be a mana rock around at the very least that you're going to be like, sure, I'll take a copy of your Soul Ring. Thank you. Create tokens, copy target creature, accepts an artifact to other types. Again, even literally if like the only creature on the table is your commander, you needed to get this, trigger off your commander, you still pick that, make a copy of your commander, and just get sacrificed because the legend roll, essentially, right? Or not sacrificed, but, dies because legend roll. But yeah, even if you have an option that basically is a do-nothing option, kind of like I talked about with Plan Defiance, still take the do-nothing option because you get the extra value from your commander. Verdant Confluence, another great one. Again, the Confluences, I'm just going to make sure I list them all. Choose 3, choose same mode more than once. 2 counters on a creature, so again, works with, make your commander beefier, making it hit harder. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. That can help out a lot. Search life for a base lane card battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Who knew ramp was good in commander? Who knew? But now that we've talked about the budget buys, let's move on to the pricier picks that are outside of my budget, but might be within yours. Again, more than $1. Every single one of these cards, though, is in that card list. Link in the description below, so make sure you check it out. First up, though, Harmonic Prodigy. This card used to be budget friendly, is no longer, for me at least. 1/3 with Prowess, which is nice. Again, you're going to be casting a ton of non-creature spells, so yeah, sure, that helps out. On top of that, though, from the ability of a Shaman or another Wizard, which Rku is, you control triggers. The ability triggers additional time. So, yeah, what's better than that once? Twice. Have fun with that. Next up, though, Roaming Throne. Yeah, this, again, is just one of those cards that it's going to be a little annoying. It's at $31 now? Goodness gracious. I think when Eddie talked about this last with me, I think it was like 17. Okay, I mean, we literally said that this card's only going to go up in price just in perpetuity until it's reprinted because it works with an absurd amount of commanders. They did not limit this card at all. It works with nearly every tribal commander out there, essentially. And then, essentially, every commander that, has a triggered ability, right, essentially. I'm just going to keep saying essentially, sorry. 4/4 Golem with Ward 2, because Wizard throws Ward in everything that costs 4. Enters the battlefield as a creature type, is the chosen type of other types. If a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers additional time. choose human. I believe Rku is human, right? Human or wizard. Choose either one of those. If you've got multiple wizards or multiple humans in the deck that have triggered abilities, sure, choose that one. Really does not matter. Even if you're just putting this in there for your commander, it's going to be worth it because it doubles up your commander's trigger, which is huge. Speaking of doubling season. Yeah, any of those doubling kind of effects, but especially doubling season, are going to be great with this. It's a pretty obvious card that's great with a lot of commanders because, well, doubling things is crazy powerful. This doubles up the number of tokens you make, so it doubles up the number of birds that you're making, which is lovely to go wide. It also doubles up the number of counters you place on things. So again, if you're placing counters on your commander, now you get 2 instead of 1. So yeah, any of the other doubling effects are going to be very good with this kind of a commander. Also, though, at this higher budget threshold, we've got other cards like Flame of Anor, instant for 3 mana in Is It. Choose one if you control a wizard as you cast a spell, you can choose 2 instead. Keep in mind your commander is a wizard. There you go. Target player draws 2 cards, destroy target artifact, 5 damage to our creature. Again, good options. Getting 2 versus 1 is a lot more value. And then again, getting 4 versus just 1 or 2 is a lot more value too. Again, I'm counting our commander's abilities in this too. Or triggered ability. Next up, Chasas Will, a card that is absurdly powerful, even at the highest level of play in Commander. Power-wise, CDH. Choose one if you control a commander. As you cast a spell, you choose both. Add a red for each card in target opponent's hand. Cast is early enough, it's 7, or just later in the game when people have 7 cards in their hand and they've drawn enough. Exile top 3 cards of your library played in this turn. So Impulse, draw 3, get potentially 7 mana, maybe even more. Gross. And yes, also with your commander, get 2 options. Most likely, again, a bird and Impulse, draw 1 more, because why not? So there you go. Cryptic Command. Instant for 4 mana in blue. Choose 2, counter target spell, bounce a permanent back to its source hand, tap all creature belonging to control, draw a card again. All these very, very famous, very, very fantastic, very, very powerful option cards are very good option cards, modal cards, you know what I mean. Finally, Sublime Epiphany. Keep in mind with this one, it's a little bit different because this is choose 1 or more. It does have 5 options, which all can be great. Counter target spell, counter target activate or triggered ability, return non-land permanent back to its source hand, create tokens, copy target creature, target player draws a card. All these great options. Only problem is that with this commander, again, I believe you can only get 3 of its effects, essentially. So make sure you're keeping that in mind. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts are on this one. Let me know your thoughts are on these new cards. What's your opinion on the brand new Rku? What cards would you utilize for it? So yeah, comment below. Stay tuned to this channel for more exciting quick takes and spoilers. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.